I am gratefully welcome Dr. S. Pratibha Gaikwad, Principal of Dhananjay Rao Kakil College of Commerce, Satara, Maharashtra. Dhananjay Rao Kakil College of Commerce is the only separate independent commerce college in Satara district. The college has been re-accredited with A grade by NAC and also received ISO 9001-2008 certificate. Dr. Pratibha ma'am did MA in economics and awarded a doctorate in economics. She is going to be present the topic titled Governance, Leadership and Management Prerequisites for Accreditation. Let me kindly invite Dr. Pratibha ma'am to present the topic. Ma'am, the session is over to you, ma'am.
It's me great pleasure to be amidst you, especially with the Virudhu Nagar Hindu Nadars, Sethi Kumar Nadar College, Tamil Nadu, for this very 5-day faculty development program on assessment, accreditation and quality assurance in higher education institutions. I place on record my high level of appreciation and thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. K. Muthu Chalayan, for giving me this very valuable opportunity and privilege to share my experiences regarding the sixth criterion with the audience. I also take this opportunity to thank Honorable Principal Dr. Pandian for giving me this opportunity, and I also place on record my high level of appreciation towards all the participants. Now, let us move towards criterion 6. From my experience as an assessor, we have seen, I made a recent study of around 45 colleges in which I experienced that in spite of these colleges scoring very good and high grades like A+ and A in their NAC assessment, their comparative score in the sixth criterion was a little less, and this has been observed in all the 45 colleges assessment profile. So this sort of makes us think over it. So why is it so? In all the other criterion, we see that they fare pretty well. They are scoring very high grade. However, in this sixth criterion, the expected points, the expected weightage is not obtained by a few colleges. So over here, let us sort of pay a little attention and let us give a few little inputs about the sixth criterion. Now, these are the highlights of my presentation. I will be just focusing on the sixth criterion. This is just a flow of my presentation on which I won't be giving a lot of time, but sixth criterion will receive a little more time. The vision mission of NAC is to make quality the defining element of higher education in India through a combination of self and external quality evaluation, promotion and sustenance initiatives. As we all are aware of the fact that quality is not an act, it is a continuous process. And in case of quality, NAC pays special focus on three aspects of quality, and that is, out of which the first one is quality sustenance. Whatever we had previously should be sustained. That is what we mean by quality sustenance. The second one is quality initiation, according to the need and the relevance of time. Quality initiation becomes an important element, and then comes quality enhancement. Whatever we have been doing, the quality in those things should be enhanced as time passes by, as per the need of time. Now, the vision mission stated by NAC plays an important role in the sixth criterion, because in governance leadership criterion, we are especially meant to state our own vision mission statement over here. And any vision mission statement of any educational institute is obviously expected to be in line with the objectives of higher education in general and vision mission of NAC in particular, because as we all are aware of the fact that NAC this autonomous body is not only in the assessment and accreditation process, but its broader aim is to bring about quality in higher educational institutes. So their vision and mission are also arranged in the manner of enhancing quality in higher educational institutes. On this screen, we see the core values of NAC. All the core values of NAC, and over here we see the 5 core values. Now the point which I would certainly like to make over here is we can also think of incorporating these 5 core values of NAC, especially in the vision mission statement of our own educational institute, and that is where these 5 points make a place in exhibiting what we have done in accordance with these 5 core values in our educational institute. This is a criterion in which we can certainly share whatever activities we are doing in order to fulfill these 5 NAC core values. Now over here, one more thing I would like to certainly share with all of us is there are 19 metrics over here in this governance, leadership and management criterion, which carries 100-point weightage. Now in these 19, one particular thing is that out of these 19, 12 are QLM. That is, we are supposed to give an explanatory response, and these responses will be validated by the actual NAC peer team visit to the educational institute. So this is a criterion in which we have space in order to convince the assessors of what we are doing under the criterion governance, leadership and management, whereas QLM is comparatively lesser, that is only 7 out of the total. And over here, if we take cognizance of the weightages allotted to QLM and QNM, we again see one more unique thing, and that is QLM is weighted at 63 points, whereas QNM, that is what we send in the 70% part for artificial intelligence assessment, has been given only 37 points. Means the QLM part, the descriptive part, the part which we are going to present in front of the NAC peer team visiting our own college, is almost double than what we will be scoring in the AI assessment. So over here, convincing the committee about what we are doing in a very well presented and documented manner might play a very significant role in scoring good numbers, good weightages in this particular criterion. Now, in case of revised assessment and accreditation, as we all know, it is ICT enabled, objectivity, transparent, scalable and robust. From qualitative peer judgment to quantitative indicators, the evaluation has shifted. But in case of the 6th criterion, the quantitative part is a little less than the qualitative. So over here, let us focus more on the qualitative peer judgment part and make ourselves cable ready in order to face the committee. Next, please. Now, pre-qualifier, now let me not get into it because prior to my criterion, 5 criterions have been taken care of. So that has been probably covered. So I will not look into it. Next. Next, please. Now, these are the 7 criterions, out of which we will take cognizance of the 6th one, that is governance, leadership and management. Next. Now, over here, in the 6th criterion, planning human resources, it plays a very, very crucial and important role over here. As we see that human resource, the number of activities carried out for enhancing the quality of human resource carries a lot of weightage. Almost 30 weightage out of 100 goes to those points. Yeah. And hence we should be very particular in making a policy which would reflect planning human resource. Then comes recruitment. Now this is a very tricky type of point, because many a times in case of affiliated and also to a large extent in case of autonomous colleges, recruitment has never been a part of the college itself. It all depends upon the government norms, and therefore we see that in many cases that there are number of seats that seem to remain vacant. In case of Maharashtra, the state where I work and reside, over there in almost all the colleges, a large number of recruitment is yet to take place for several genuine reasons. So over there, what are we to do? So over here in governance, leadership and management, we can think of one way out, and that is compensating the permanent teachers with maybe ad hoc or clock hour basis, visiting guests, whatever the nature of appointment suits the particular college, and the rules and regulations framed by the concerned state government and the affiliating university may be adopted in case of recruitment. But the thing and the point which we should, or we must rather always keep in mind, that the ultimate beneficiaries, that is the students, should not suffer because of inadequate faculty members and unupdated faculty members. Then comes training, updation. Now in this particular arena and scenario of COVID-19 pandemic, a special type of training plays a vital role, not only in 2021, but maybe it will also extend, God forbid, it should not extend to 21-22, but a lot of focus will have to be paid in the process of distance education or online teaching learning. Now, in case of training, especially related to teaching learning, a blended teaching learning approach as a strategy has to be adopted in this COVID-19 pandemic situation, because only chalk and talk or classroom teaching learning may not happen for all the obvious reasons which I need not spell out over here. So blended learning, especially online teaching learning, as also physical learning to a certain extent, maybe after December or whatever the situation develops for us, accordingly we can conduct physical teaching, and then self-learning also should take place. So in that case, the training was always necessary for both academic and administrative staff, but it has gained a little more extra importance in this COVID-19 pandemic situation. So those colleges who will be facing NAC after, say, maybe whenever the NAC finds it's appropriate to send the teams, maybe after December or whatever their schedule might be, will have to have a special training program in their pattern of strategic plan and perspective plan, because it is just necessary, it is rather inevitable to have a new training plan. Then performance appraisal. Now again, under this COVID-19 pandemic situation, performance appraisal will also have a new dimension to it. Now, this performance would not be only the classroom teaching performance, but the online teaching performance. So, softwares will also have to be developed. So, there is a lot of role which the governance, leadership, and management aspect has to play in this whole situation. Now, over here, the IQAC, which plays and which gains a separate position in the governance, leadership, and management criterion, will have to put in focused efforts in order to see to it that quality is initiated, sustained, and enhanced in this pandemic situation through blended learning and through online activities. Financial management. Now, for example, if I am permitted to share my own experience, I stay in a semi-urban area, and now as the UGC as well as all the state governments and affiliating universities have sort of indicated that we should not be very insisting on collection of fees. So over here, now we would find a crunch in obtaining grants from various financial institute, where various apex bodies as well as collecting revenue in the form of fees also has become a little more challenging in this particular pandemic situation. So over here, we have to also focus a little more on how we will be able to make optimum utilization of the existing financial situation and the ways in which we can sort of tap certain resources in the form of CSR from corporates, or we can maybe sort of approach certain philanthropists to not only contribute in the way of finances, but in certain places one cannot now afford to appoint ad hoc or temporary faculty. In that case, if our alumni association or our contacts are willing to give in certain online educational matter free of charge, that also can be managed, or that also can be taken care of in case of financial management. And the overall role of leadership has become all the more important in this pandemic situation, because as we see all around the world, total mankind has gone into a sort of discouraging mindset and environment. Moreover, the youngsters, especially in my part, are committing what we may call unexpected acts, like taking their own lives, committing suicide. So the overall role of leadership has to be ever more encouraging and motivating in this pandemic situation. So over here we can also form certain counseling units, counseling sessions, to counsel not only children, but even parents are irritated. Parents are sort of feeling restless, or especially parents of teenagers. They approach, maybe all of you, and as a teacher they approach, and as a principal they approach our institute also, in order to sort of find a way out for the behavior, for the sort of strange behavior of their teenagers. So over here also, the overall leadership, not only in case of planning a human resource, recruitment, training, performance appraisal and financial management, but also this new dimension has come up for the leadership to take care of. Next, please. Now over here, institution vision and leadership plays a very prominent role over here. 10 points have been allotted, 10 is the weightage. Formal, informal coordination of the academic and administrative planning and implementation of achieving its vision and mission would play an important role over here. So over here in institution vision and leadership, over here I would certainly like to make one point, share one point. It is not only essential to identify the vision and mission of the institute, but when the NAC peer team comes to the college for assessment, for the matter of fact, or otherwise also, let us sort of see to it that how we fulfill our vision and mission. That would be really a meaningful activity under this governance, leadership and management. Only identifying vision and mission in tune with the higher educational institutes objectives would be necessary but not sufficient. Over here, I would like to sort of place on record the fact that how we fulfill our vision and mission would also play an important role over here. The next point is about strategy development and deployment, which plays an important role over here. In case of institutional vision and leadership, we see over here that there are 2 points, and both these points are related to the qualitative explanation. Both are QLM. So a descriptive part of explanation has to be given in case of institutional vision and leadership, and the points are, the first point is regarding the leader, whether an effective leadership is in tune with the vision and mission of the institute, for about which we have spoken a little bit. And the second is how the institution practices decentralization and participative management. This is related to 6.1. Now over here in decentralization and participative management, one can always think about a participative management which encompasses all the stakeholders, namely not only the students but the peers, the employers, the employees, the alumni, and everybody related to the higher educational institute, and that might fetch greater participation of the community in the educational institute and good results. The second key indicator is strategy development and deployment, which has in all 4 metrics. Out of these 4 metrics, we see that 3 are QLM, that is qualitative, and 1 QNM is only quantitative. Now again over here, major, like the earlier key indicator, both were the qualitative. Now over here also we have 3 qualitative metrics in which perspective and strategic plan and deployment documents are expected. Now, after our vision, mission, and objective, let us sort of pay a little attention to the bifurcation we may be able to make between strategy and plan. Now over here, I would certainly like to share certain points which I observed and found very convincing. In case of strategy, strategy is something which answers the question why. Why are we doing what we are doing? Would be the manner in which we can place the strategy, we can identify the strategy of higher educational institute, and plan would be answer to the question how. The manner in which we are going to implement the strategy may be called as the plan. So this is how initially we can sort of bifurcate between strategy and plan, and then it becomes easier for us to develop both the strategy, plan, and then implement or deploy it. So over here, documentary evidence is providing the strategic plan development and deployment plays a very, very important role, and it has to be updated on our website also. In case of QNM, that is quantitative data, e-governance has been asked, that is about planning and development, administration, finance and account, students admission and support, and examination. Now in this pandemic situation, e-governance was always important because ICT enabled teaching learning has been the sort of key aspect of higher education in the 21st century especially. But in this pandemic situation, this QNM, which is related 6.2.3, which is related to e-governance, has become almost inevitable, because we cannot be doing all this now physically or manually because of this situation though. So this has to be taken care of. In case of examination, still we are in a dilemma whether we are supposed to conduct, especially in Maharashtra, I don't know about the other states very clearly, however, whether to conduct final year examination or not. And if we are expected to conduct, we will have to put in a lot of efforts in order to conduct it online, especially in the rural area. So the governance, leadership and management has to take cognizance on on how will we be able to conduct these activities with the help of e-governance. Henceforth also, maybe throughout the year, and God forbid, even during the next year, we will have to take help of e-governance. So that should become an inevitable part of governance and leadership. And then the next part in the strategy development and deployment is focused on various bodies and committees. All the statutory and necessary bodies have to be in existence. But as we see in number of colleges, the experience which we have obtained by visiting a few colleges, we see that the committees are on paper, but their performance, their activities are not made very clear. Maybe they are conducting activities, they are taking pains in sort of engaging various programs, but they are not documented as expected. So these documents, these committees should perform very well in a documented form, which would give us extra points and weightage for this particular key indicator. The third point is of great importance over here, which deals with the faculty empowerment strategies. Now over here, the faculty empowerment strategies have been given 30 points weightage by DAC, which is the maximum in 100. Of course, there are two, IQAC and faculty empowerment strategy, which have been allotted 30 weightage. So from the weightage itself, we can understand the importance of empowering the faculty, because faculty is the most important stakeholder. It is the giver, and all the others are the receivers. If the giver is not empowered, how will the receivers be empowered? How will the receivers enhance their ability and capability of performing in future? So faculty empowerment strategy plays over here a very important role. And over here we see that there are an elaborate sort of five metrics over here, and in these 5 metrics again we see that there are there are 2 QLM, and the remaining 3 are QNM over here. So effective welfare measures for teaching and non-teaching staff is a QLM, and we are expected to write it in 500 words. So these welfare measures should be identified, recorded both for teaching and non-teaching. When we visit several institutes in several parts, what we observe that the welfare measures which are identified, which are provided to the faculty, to the teaching staff, are most of the time satisfactory enough. But we fall short in case by providing effective welfare measures to the non-teaching staff. So this also should be taken care of and should be given a very proper thought. And then comes the aspect of average percentage of teachers who are provided financial support to attend conferences, workshops, and towards membership fees of professional bodies. So this also should be a very encouraging factor in empowering the faculty, because when our faculty is provided financial support, they feel encouraged to participate in conferences and workshops. And one thing we should maybe take cognizance of in this particular matrix is mere participation would not be very fruitful, may not serve the purpose, but making presentations, disseminating knowledge which they have created back home through their research or any other activity should be shared in these conferences and workshops, which would really make this activity a little more meaningful. And then comes the faculty development programs organized, like this very eminent program organized under the leadership of Honorable Vice Chancellor Muthuchalan Sir. This type of faculty development programs, both for teaching and non-teaching staff plays a very vital role in enhancing, in empowering the faculty, in enhancing their quality. Now again, one thing which we all observe is the empowering the faculty development, professional development programs are carried out to a satisfactory extent for the teaching staff. But again, the activities carried out for non-teaching staff remains inadequate. Now, in case of educational institutes, academics should know about administration, and administration also should be aware a little bit about what is happening in academics. So one can also think of a sort of clubbed program in which both administrators as well as academicians can take part, and that can also become a very novel and very unique activity, because in this online teaching age, these things have become all the more important. The next point which we can take cognizance of over here is teachers attending professional development program. Thanks to the University Grants Commission, now we don't have to go out, we don't have to leave our own hometowns in order to attend various courses. All the orientation, refresher, faculty development programs have come online, have become online, and now that gives us more space. Earlier, relieving a person from the educational institute and then taking care of his workload back home was a little bit challenging for the leaders. Now, these leaders can take sort of advantage of this particular situation of indulging and encouraging the faculty to undertake these online orientation, refresher, short-term faculty development programs during the tenure. And it is more healthy way, more appropriate way in this pandemic situation as well. The next point, which falls under the category of QLM in this particular key indicator faculty empowerment strategy, is about institutions' appraisal system for teaching and non-teaching staff. Now over here, one new point should be considered is how will you define, how will one define a mechanism to towards performance appraisal of online teaching learning, because the feedback of online teaching learning also would play a significant role in assessing the faculty for his performance in teaching learning. So one can give a thought to this particular aspect as well. Now let us turn our attention to the next point, which carries 20 points, which is the second most important key indicator in governance, leadership and management criterion number 6, which is titled as financial management and resource mobilization. Now over here in the key indicator of financial management and resource mobilization, we find 3 matrices, out of which 2 are qualitative and 1 is quantitative. Now out of these 2 qualitative, the first one is whether internal and external financial audits are conducted regularly. This is an administrative part, and everything, all the educational institutes on a very large scale are very particular, especially the government colleges and universities cannot do without it. So internal and external financial audits most of the time are conducted regularly, but the thing which we can take cognizance of over here in this matrices, if there are any queries occurring in the internal and external audit, because this is QLM, and the peer team which consists of Honorable Vice Chancellor as the ex officio chairman, and also along with the principal of some renowned college, along with the professor, are very keen on checking whether the queries which were identified in the internal audit and the external audit have been fulfilled within time. So if that is done, go well and good. If not, cognizance should be taken about fulfilling the queries and removing all these type of queries from the observations of the auditors made for the college. The next one is QNM, and that is regarding the funds and grants received from NGOs, individuals, philanthropists, which are not covered under criterion 3. So over here again, the amount is one we can call a superficial, what we can call superficial element of a particular college. But what lies underneath, the undercurrent of this QNM is how effective the governance, management and leadership is in reaching to all the philanthropists and givers of the society would reflect in the number, in the amount which has been received by the college in the form of funds or grants from various bodies. What is your wavelength? If the amount received by the institute, by the educational institute is small, that would give a very sort of a little bit negative impression of about the educational institute. Rather, the rapport which you have with the community at large, or what the community thinks about your authenticity and reliability as far as the higher educational institute goes. So there are certain undercurrents for this particular QNM which may be considered while answering, and this amount as far as possible should be maximum. However, we cannot give one particular figure because there are locational differences, several type of diversities are found, and therefore there would be differences. But in the given circumstance, how far and how well we can do in this particular criterion and metric should be taken care of. The next one falls in the category of QLM, and that is strategies for mobilization of funds and optimum utilization of resources. Now, say for example, a teacher is funded by the college to attend a seminar and conference, and if the faculty just goes and participates and he or she is a mere audience, nothing wrong with it, but it cannot be termed as optimum utilization. Sharing and presenting should happen. Suppose the resources are utilized for providing funding for undertaking major projects, and those projects are completed, but they are not published, then the resources which have been put in have not served the purpose of that particular creation of knowledge. One may think in those terms. So that thing also should be taken care of. And the last key indicator, that is 6.51, is the internal quality assurance SAFE. Now, those who are appearing for the second and onward cycle, IQAS or the internal quality IQAC is but mandatory, unavoidable. One has to have. But one more point which we can sort of take care of, even if we are facing the first cycle, there is nothing wrong in having a IQAC, but rather we must have a IQAC because it is the body which is expected to take care of the quality measures adopted by the college. Now, this point has been given 30-point weightage, and over here, all the strategies and policies should be sort of spelled. Now, over here, out of the experience of visiting various colleges, we see that we are expected, as per the NAC guidelines and the time visit schedule given by NAC, after the principal's presentation, after a few presentations thereafter, the IQAC has to make a presentation. Now, why we are sharing this experience? Because many a times what is the purpose of IQAC is lost sight of by number of colleges. So let that not happen. In order to sort of avoid this type of happening, I am sharing this experience with all the audience. Whatever has been presented by the principal, in a way or the other, the same activities are reflected in the IQAC presentation. This is point number 1, which is objectionable. And point number 2, only the IQAC members of the college are present during the IQAC presentation. Now, the composition of IQAC has been specifically mentioned and given by NAC in order to see to it that it encompasses all the stakeholders in order to enhance the quality of the higher educational institute. The policy should be multidimensional, hence all the stakeholders form a part of the IQAC committee, and that is seldom seen in a number of colleges. So over here, in the last 2 to 3 minutes, one point I would like to bring to your valuable notice is the IQAC presentation. When it focuses on the activities, it merely becomes a replica of what has been presented by the honorable head of the institution, and that is not the purpose of IQAC. The IQAC should particularly focus on the quality measures, quality decisions, the strategies, the plans which have been identified by the institute in order to make these activities happen. This is point number 1. And the second point I would like to stress upon is all the stakeholders given in the composition of NAC should be a part of decision-making process, quality policy formulation process of the IQAC. So this is all which I had to share in this limited time frame of this presentation. May I now invite a few questions, if any?
Which areas may be focused for strategic planning?
Now, it all depends upon the vision, mission, and objective of the individual institute. Say, for example, my particular college falls in the semi-urban area where majority of students come from a vernacular medium background. So the plan should be such, the strategy should be such, say, for example, to enhance the language competency of the students. There are a number of students where ICT, they are not aware about the ICT activity. So such type of strategy may be adopted. What should be the answer and how should be the plan? So this is how one can do it. It is very much location specific. However, we should not lose sight of the vision mission of Higher Educational Institute, MHRD at large, and the objectives, 5 core values given by NAC, and accordingly to our local situation, we should address the local needs. Thank you.
Another question, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Ma'am, as you said, in 6.3.3, what is reports of human resource development centers for programs organized by the institution?
Resource development centers. Now, over here, in order to bring about human resource development, the apex body expects us to have a center which is sponsored by UGC. There are schemes in which we can get these centers, and then the reports which encompasses the empowerment strategies can be provided in this HRD centers, madam. This is a little more elaborate thing. My email ID is with them. I can also share certain examples on mail.
Last question, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
What efforts individuals can take now to rectify IQAC shortcomings? What efforts individuals can take now to rectify IQAC shortcomings?
Now, it all would depend on the nature of the shortcomings, which I am not aware of. Say, for example, let us take an example. The composition does not encompasses all the stakeholders besides faculty. Let us see to it that all the stakeholders like the current students, the alumni, the industrialists are a part of the IQAC, so that they can give a comprehensive quality policy measure. Or maybe if the IQAC meetings are not conducted regularly, let that be conducted regularly and let them act on the policy part or the quality enhancement part. So in that way, an individual, after all, a committee is a group of individuals. So whatever is done by an individual in order to rectify anything plays a major role. And as per the shortcomings, we can sort of diagnose what is our problem, and accordingly we can give the solutions to it. Again, I would repeat the same thing. My email ID is with you. If somebody has certain specific concern, we can stay in touch and we can have a discussion on mail.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. I once again take the opportunity to humbly place on record my to Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Dr. K. Muthuchalayan sir and Honorable Principal Dr. Pandian sir and all the organizers, as well as the audience, for bearing me for the last 1 hour and for the opportunity given. Thanks a lot. Good day. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.
So, dear participants, I finally end the day with a nice quote. In this world, we have to take chances. Sometimes they are worth it, and sometimes they are not. But I am telling you now, you will never know until you try. So, have a great day, all of you. Be safe and be healthy. Thank you, one and all.